this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start out with item 1C, our vision statement. The Walton Central School District is an organization committed to learning and growing together by providing a safe, caring, inspiring environment where students engage in a wide variety of opportunities that honor their individual interests, needs, and talents in the classroom and beyond. We'll move on to item 1D, the Orange Crush celebrations. Turn it over to Ms. Glavin.
Starting out, we want to celebrate during our January 2026 Regents examination session. Algebra 1 student performance showed a significant and encouraging increase. After several years of Regents proficiency rates remaining on the lower end following the COVID-19 pandemic, proficiency rose sharply to 77% on the January exam. This represents meaningful progress and reflects the collective efforts of students, teachers, and the instructional support systems that we have put in place over the last couple of years. This month, we are also spotlighting our kindergarten classrooms. Kindergarten had a very special visitor from the Sydney Federal Credit Union that discussed the importance of saving. She read an age-appropriate book, and then the students drew a picture of what they wanted to save money for. A phone, a treehouse, a new toy, etc. I'm sure they all wrote the budget too, right? They were like, school budget. And last but not least, our advanced 8th graders who took life science and biology the first semester all passed their Regents exam with excellent scores.
Good.
Lots of things to be excited about.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, at this time, we'll move on to item 2A. I would entertain a motion to recess the regular board meeting until the conclusion of the district-wide safety plan public hearing.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Motion by Team, second by Jake. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. So at this time, we are moving on to item 2B, the presentation of the district-wide safety plan.
Okay. This year, very few changes. On page 15, we have safety committee additions, which are Lori Setta, Steve Condon, and Rob Reinhardt. You're in addition. Congratulations. The other big changes are Appendix 13 and 14, which are the cardiac emergency response plan, which we actually included in last year's building level emergency response plans, so which are our confidential plans. So we kind of narrowed that down and we put what we could in our safety plan. Other than that, we have our SRO contract, which is on about page 107, I believe. And those are really the only two additions. Are there any questions about either one of those? I don't want to go over either one of them explicitly. All right, that's it.
Nope, I was going to introduce them.
Okay.
As everybody knows you, it's Rick
Jump right
Robinson.
in.
It's okay. I appreciate you sharing that information out as the updates.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. So moving on to item 2C, now we would accept any public comment on the plan. It is anticipated this plan will be adopted at the March 17th, 2026 regular Board of Education meeting after a 30-day public comment period. Comments may be emailed to the district clerk at cprainer@waltoncsd.org or by calling 607-865-4116 extension 6130. Any comments, public comments on the district safety plan? Right. Seeing none, any further discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to return to the regular board meeting.
So moved. Seconded.
Motion by Jake, second by Graydon. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. We will now return to the regular board meeting. Item 3A, the approval of the minutes from the January 20th, 2026 regular meeting as presented.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Jake, second by Walton. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. 3B is the approval of the CSE and CPSE recommendations. dated February 10th, 2026.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Tammy, second by Michelle. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. And now we are moving on to item 4A, the public comments. At this time, we are entering the public comment period of our meeting. While the New York State Open Meeting Law, Public Officers Law, Article 7, does not require us to offer an opportunity for the public to be heard, the Walton Central School District Board of Education values community input and welcomes your comments in accordance with policy number 1230, public participation at board meetings. The public comment period is an opportunity for you to share concerns and opinions on public matters relating to school business. Please understand this is a time for the board to listen and is not designed to be an open dialogue. We do take your input seriously, and while we may not respond tonight, the board administration may follow up or refer matters to the superintendent for further action. Furthermore, under state and federal privacy laws, we cannot entertain comments or questions regarding individual school personnel or students in public session. Please know that we take these concerns very seriously. On personnel or student matters, we ask you to present your comments and or concerns to the superintendent during regular business hours following the district communication guidelines. We ask that all speakers and audience members demonstrate mutual respect even when views diverge. This serves as an important example of civil discourse for our students. Please address all comments directly to the board president at the podium rather than the audience. As a matter of courtesy to others in attendance, comments of individuals and groups should be limited to 3 minutes, with a priority given to comments on items on tonight's agenda. Individuals or groups wishing to speak longer than 3 minutes must advise the superintendent of schools no later than 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting in writing and provide contact information. If you represent a group, please designate a single spokesperson. Please raise your hand to be recognized. Approach the podium and state your name clearly for the record. The public comment period will run for 30 minutes, so the board may vote to extend this if necessary. In lieu of speaking, the board also welcomes you to submit written comments to the district clerk at boe@waltoncsd.org or by calling 607-865-4116 extension 6130. Thank you for your participation and your commitment to our schools. So at this time, I would ask if there's any public comment on the items on tonight's agenda. Okay, Eric. Okay, do you guys want to go?
Come on up, yeah.
Thanks for finding us.
Yes, I see my
Do you
podium.
wanna state your name and sign in.
Oh yeah, sure. Eric Northrup and Beth O'Brien, we're here on behalf of the Village of Walton, Village Board. Primary reason for our visit was to address with you and bring to your attention that the issue of parking in front of the elementary school is something that's hot on our agenda. We had a vote on our last board meeting last Tuesday to potentially change the way the parking situation is out front of the elementary school because it is chaotic, especially with the snow piles this time of year. We did table that because we wanted to, and we anticipate voting on it again either next month or the month after that, depending on how this goes. But we want to try to see if there's something we can do to collaborate to make sure we find a solution that is in the best interest of the school students and the village, to make sure that that situation gets smoothed out a lot. We've had a lot of complaints about it. We want to address it in the most respectful and meaningful way between both parties so we can come to an agreement. I understand that this is not a question and answer session, and I understand that we're not going to get the solution standing here tonight, but if we can establish communication on that issue in the very near future, and create a plan or a small group of people that can kind of decide that, I'd be happy to facilitate that the best I can so we can find a resolution. Don't forget anything.
I've already covered it.
The mayor has also sent me a couple other things to talk about because he's at a different meeting tonight. The fire hydrant at the bottom of the hill on O'Neill and Maple apparently is on school property. Is that correct? Does everybody know? So apparently they've been giving the people that work at the ARC, or they live at the ARC facility at the bottom of the hill, a lot of grief about not maintaining it, but I don't believe it's on their property. So we just want to make sure that that gets addressed. Apparently the massive amount of snow we've gotten has been pushed in front of that, and it may be an issue. I did not personally address that, but the message has been conveyed to me by the mayor. Forget that, but I have it on my note. Hang on a second. No, it's okay. I think that's it, unless you have anything to add.
No, that's
Okay.
the big thing is with funding.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Reason we're here. Yeah.
Figuring something out.
Thank you for bringing your comments forward. If I could just ask you to
Yeah, I'll put the
sign
signing in. I just want to.
That topic is not on tonight's agenda, but I think Superintendent Glavin is planning to address some aspects of that in her superintendent update. So,
Okay. I'll step this aside.
thank you.
Can I ask a clarifier? So the only, you had a question, the fire hydrant itself being physically on school property is buried. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's what I'm understanding.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Any further comments, public comments tonight?
And me?
Sure. Anybody else? Okay. That we will close the public comment. Move on to 5A, discussion items. So first item, we have the finance committee met last week, as well as earlier tonight, just before this meeting. Primary discussion during the last week's finance committee meeting was the budget update from Meg. So I'll turn over to Meg because that was a lot of the content that we spoke about. We're going to provide an update, general update tonight to the board.
Sure. So as Kevin mentioned, the finance committee met to review like a first draft of the budget for next year. The proposed budget as presented to the finance committee, or the draft budget, includes $24.7 million in revenues and $26.7 million in expenditures, a difference of about $2 million. Previously, the finance committee has set a target of not utilizing fund balance to fund the budget at a point that would take us below 6% fund balance. So looking at where we project ending this year, we would have about $1.6 million of fund balance that we could apply to that $2 million deficit and not go below the 6% target. When we set out to develop the draft budget, the goal was to mirror our operations as they exist this year. So any new requests were not added to the budget. We just budgeted as we are operating today. New things were not yet added to this budget. The committee did review a list of some new requests that had been submitted during budget meetings. Some assumptions that are included in the budget is a 2.07 tax levy increase, which is in compliance with the tax cap. We've also budgeted foundation aid for the executive budget proposal. We've assumed a 5% increase in most BOCES services. We hope to get their budget sometime this month so that we will have better numbers. And we've assumed an 18% health insurance, increase in our health insurance. Some other assumptions that are included in the draft budget. We have reduced one high school teaching position through attrition due to a retirement. Similarly, one elementary teaching position due to attrition through retirement. We've reduced one aide position. We have a student with a one-to-one aide that is graduating. We will no longer need that. We don't have a planned retirement, but we have frequent turnover and changes in our aide needs, so we think that we can accomplish that change if nothing else changes. We've reduced our special education contractual transportation budget based on what our current special education placements are. We have fewer outside special education placements this year, and we aren't having to transport them as far. Previously, we had some students going to Sullivan County or Norwich or other locations, and the transportation was very expensive. We currently don't have any students in those placements, so we've reduced the budget to reflect where we're currently transporting students. The one item that we added based on input from the finance committee that we don't currently have in this year's budget is $20,000 to fund a grant writing coaster through BOCES. This is through the Capital Region city buses, and they would assist us in writing various grants for the district. We
included the athletics budget similar to the budget that exists for this year. The one change that the finance committee recommended was a reduction of one varsity football coach. When looking at the coaching salaries related to the different sports that we have and the level of participation, there was significantly more spent on football coaching, and so this just brings it closer to the amount that's spent on the other sports. The district has had 2 social workers for the last several years, funded first through COVID funds and then through a grant that we were able to obtain. That grant expires in September, so administrators feel that those positions are very important. So we've moved the funding for those 2 positions into the general fund. And we've added a high school special education teacher. There's a need for an additional special education teacher to meet some of the needs of our current students and students that are moving from middle school to middle school. And as I said previously, there are also some new requests that came through the budget meetings, but we've not added those into the draft budget. Adding them would further increase that deficit. This chart just gives you an idea of what our revenue sources are. The orange is state aid, makes up about 66% of our revenue. It's a little over $16 million. The blue is local, which is primarily property taxes. There's some other things in there like interest earnings, or if we have students from another district that tuitions into our district. But the property taxes of the state aid are the primary sources of revenue. This chart just shows you comparing actual results of 2025, budgeted results for this year, and the proposed budget for next year, just showing the increase in revenues over the years, which is not a significant increase. And the federal and other categories, we don't get a lot of funds there, so really all you see on this chart is the state aid and the local revenue. This chart shows you this year's budget for state aid compared to what we budgeted for next year. We're looking at a $147,000 increase in foundation aid. The largest increase is in BOCES aid. That's increasing almost $170,000 or 11%. This is primarily the result of 2 things. One, as we've added BOCES services or spend more with BOCES, the amount that we get back because it's an expense-based aid increases. But I think the largest driver of that was a change in the state regulations related to a salary cap on some BOCES salaries. They would only fund us on the first $30,000. That's increased to $40,000 in next year's budget and is anticipated to increase another $10,000 for the next couple of years. But overall, we're looking at about a 2% or $333,000 increase in state aid from this year to next. This is the calculation of our tax cap. It goes through how I come up with that 2.07% that we can increase the tax levy by next year and remain under the cap. It generates about $160,000, that 2% increase. And just as a frame of reference, every 1% on the tax levy currently generates us about $77,000 in revenue. One of the things that came up in the finance committee, and we often hear when we go to seminars and different things about budgeting, is they say that you should always increase your tax levy to the amount you're allowed to under the cap, because that ensures that you have gradual increases over time, as opposed to not increasing some years and then finding yourself where you need to catch up, because we know that our expenses are increasing every year and our revenues need to keep pace with that. There were some recent years where the district chose not to increase the tax levy or didn't increase it the entire amount that was allowed by the cap. Those were 16, 17, 17, 18, and 19, 20. And this chart shows you how much we increased the levy, both dollar and percent wise, how much we could have increased it, and how much we, they say, left on the table, which are these numbers here. If you move those, if you bring those forward to today's dollars with the increases that have happened to the tax levy since that time, that would be an additional $421,000 in the tax levy in next year's budget that we now don't have because we didn't increase it in the years we were able to. Over time, if you compound how much the district would have received each year had they implemented those increases, it's $3.4 million that we would have generated if we had increased the levy to the amount allowable under the cap those years. These charts start to look at the expenditure side of the budget. The blue is our salaries and benefits, which make up 70% of our budget, so that's the largest chunk of our budget. The next largest is 24%, which is equipment and contractual supplies, so that's all of our BOCES services, materials and supplies, electricity, diesel fuel, all those types of expenses, tuition. Again, this chart again is showing those compared to actual results last year, this year's budget, and proposed next year. Not a lot of change in the different categories, but you will see that these columns are increasing at a faster rate than we see on the revenue chart that we have a few slides ago. This chart, again, looks at our overall expenditures, but it's looking at it not by type of expenditure, but by function. So 46% of our budget is spent on instruction, about 30% on employee benefits, 5% on transportation, 7% debt service, and general support is things like the business office or the board or the clerk or the superintendent that support overall education, with the facilities department, things like that. These charts, the blue is our revenue each year, actual budgeted this year, and the proposed budget for next year. The orange is the expenditures. You can see that the expenditures are higher than the revenues, which is not a trend we want to continue. The gray line shows the depletion of our fund balance as you compound the years of our expenses exceeding our revenues. This chart shows our assigned and unassigned fund balance at the end of last year, so June 30th, 2025, we had about $3.4 million. The estimate for a deficit this year was about $250,000. That's much less than we anticipated, and there's a number of reasons that are contributing to that. Some of the significant ones are vacant positions that we have throughout the district that we're trying to and intend to fill. In addition, we had a significant number of employees that chose to opt out of our insurance. So when we had retirements last year and we hired their replacements, we had budgeted assuming the replacements would take insurance, but many of them took the buyout, and we even had some employees that had previously participated in our insurance that, due to when open enrollment came around, chose to go on to a spouse's insurance. And then in order to maintain the 6% fund balance, we would need about $1.6 million. So this is where the $1.6 million that's available to appropriate to next year's budget comes from. And that is assuming that the deficit that's projected for the end of this year does not change. As Kevin mentioned, we have a budget workshop coming up at the end of the month. So at that meeting, we will sit down and talk about what the board wants to do as far as how we move forward and how we close that gap. Is it, do we want to look at expenses that can be reduced? We have a list of items that the administrators have identified that you can review and get your input on, as well as the board's appetite for exceeding the tax cap if we want to raise more than the 2.7%. So those are some of the options that we have available. We will also review the requested additions to the budget to see if the board is interested in adding any of those to the current draft budget. Questions?
So in the finance committee meeting, we went over we didn't go over in detail, but we provided the draft expenditure and the draft revenue budget below. Is the version that's on board docs, is that still the latest?
No, it's not. There were a few items that the finance committee identified to take out of the proposed budget, which I did after that meeting. So there is a slightly more updated version.
So you'll be sharing that before the workshop then?
Yeah, I will start to populate the workshop agenda within board docs.
Okay.
So Corey can help me create that, and you can find documents there.
And these slides will share as well, because these are in board docs, correct?
Nope, I can put them there.
Okay. That'd be great.
And we did share a Google Sheet with you all with the results of the budget survey that went out. I think you might have mentioned we got 196 responses, which is pretty good, I think.
Yep. That was just in a week. So we had a pretty good response, right? And that is actually linked in board docs now, so everybody can take a look at that. It's linked under the community budget survey results. I would encourage you to look at that before the workshop on the 23rd. Any questions for Mike?
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you. Michelle or Bruce, did you have any additions from that finance committee meeting?
No.
I think that covers. Did you have any you wanted to highlight or?
No, but I'll
Okay.
I'll
You wanna
slide
do
into
one?
the executive budget because it kind of matches with what Meg was talking about. But the idea of the foundation aid and the runs for that, that is also linked here. But I just wanted to kind of, we'll talk a little bit later, but we actually participated in a professional development done for the Catskill Area City Schools Council, that they supplied some budget information. And one of the things they actually shared out was the foundation aid. The big piece or walk away now is that Governor Hochul has said that every school will get minimum 1% increase. Now you just happen to notice what the increase is for health insurance and things like that. So I'm here to say that I don't think anybody is super thrilled with that 1%, and there's a lot of people that are going to be lobbying and looking for increases. Walton actually did get, technically they got a 1.7% for the runs, but that is still not something that we feel like is anywhere near what would support us, as well as many other superintendents. So there is an attempt at the lobbying day to speak on that, to push for more foundation aid. So more to come. I don't know if that's going to help us, but we're going to be optimistic. So that is also linked in here, the budget runs. And I just wanted to say thank you to Meg for putting all that together for the finance committee as well, getting that down, because that was the initial ideas, and the updated version obviously will be out. So I'm glad you asked about that. So we did make some changes.
So as a reminder, the board budget workshop is scheduled for Tuesday, February 24th at 4:30 p.m. And our community budget forum is on Tuesday, March 17th at 7 p.m. or immediately following our regular business meeting. Because we've moved our regular business meeting start time to 6:15, there's a likelihood that the start of that previously scheduled 7 p.m. forum could be a little bit later. So I just want to make folks aware of that. While we're on the topic of the finances, I might actually just skip to the School Board Institute training and the legislative advocacy items, because a lot of that is financial related. Yes. So, as Teresa pointed out, we did, Jake, Meg, Teresa, and myself, we attended the Catskill Area
City Schools Council.
There you go. Okay, it's School Board's initiative on January 27th, and one of the keynote speaker there was Bob Lowry, who's the head of NISCUS, and his slide deck is linked. There's the PDF, and what Teresa was just talking about is actually shown on slide 18 or PDF page 18. That actually shows the districts that were represented in that Catskill coalition, I guess, right?
Right, the people that attended that
yep.
program.
And showing primarily most of the schools getting just a 1% increase in foundation aid. As a reminder for us, the foundation aid is about half of our revenue for the year. So for most schools and for us, this is a significant source of revenue to what most schools are relying on. What Bob pointed out in his presentation, and I also heard during the virtual Capital Conference this past Friday, is that so 468 schools in New York State are receiving this 1%, meaning that they're unsafe, harmless, and are not actually represented by the foundation aid formula. So that's 68% of our schools that are not being, or funding is not being adequately distributed based on this formula, which is really a disgrace, honestly, when it comes to the formula. So there's still a significant need for revision to the foundation aid formula at the state level, and obviously it needs to be restructured. Other factors need to be incorporated so that the funding is equitably distributed across the state, because right now it's just not happening. I will get into a little bit more in the virtual Capital Conference related to the foundation aid, but was there anything else that we learned at that CASC School Board Institute on the 27th that you wanted to point out?
Well, feel free to jump in, Jake, too, but we did also attend some information on health insurance through the consortium, through ONC BOCES that they do, and how schools are looking to join these consortiums in some cases to help support. We have other avenues, but it was just really important for us to see how across the board health insurance premiums are increasing, and it's a stress. The other thing that they shared with us was understanding BOCES and how the state aid works with BOCES and what kind of aid we get back for the school for the services that we get. Just to make sure you understand, we don't get that aid back right away. When we do it, it's the year later. But that was a really nice presentation to talk about how BOCES work. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but it was it's good those programs are set up to be able to make sure that there's better understanding, and they're set up with board members and administration. So, but it was
Yeah,
valuable.
yeah, it was valuable, yeah. Would encourage any board members to look to attend the next year, that opportunity is presented. Jake, did you have anything else?
You guys hit it off.
And then in terms of under legislative advocacy, I did attend the virtual Capital Conference this past Friday. There is a link which was that in it for you?
Yes.
No, where is it here?
The recording.
Oh, right there, it's just that direct link there. That will take you to the recording of the virtual conference. They're also supposed to be releasing the slide deck, which was the detailed executive budget analysis, which I will share when I get it. Just some of the main notes that I kind of took away. A big proposed addition in the executive budget is universal pre-K, which would be a requirement for districts to provide by 2029 if parents wanted to have their 4-year-old in pre-K. So the governor is offering, I think it's $10,000 per student is the proposal right now, but it's not clear if there's additional funding being offered for additional teachers or facilities, so that is a concern, making sure that this is not an unfunded mandate. The Betty Rosa, who's the commissioner of the New York State Educational Department, she was actually pointing out the 1% minimum increase for those safe harmless districts, and she's hopeful that there's a change. She particularly pointed out that the 1% was concerning with the increasing costs of healthcare. The NICEAD is disappointed with the lack of changes to the Foundation Aid formula. They were specifically hoping for changes related to homeless factors, as well as English language learning factors. So there is a hope that the state legislature will look to revise the Foundation Aid formula, even though the government did not propose it this year. On the issue of zero-emission buses, there's no proposal to change the requirements. NICEAD did say that they have made the waiver application public, which I think we're aware of, but they said publicly that they will not be working on those until July 1st. So there's really no point in submitting that application for an extension until June 30th. So they're saying basically if you need time to look at your whole budget picture, complete your budget process, and then submit that application. And that waiver is for 2027, 2028, or 2029. Right now, there's no movement on extending that at the state level. There are now some renewable energy projects that will be able. There's what was left out of the executive budget. There's no discussion of raising the unassigned fund balance limit, which is currently 4%. There was a hope that that would be raised to 6 or 8%. As I mentioned, no change to zero-emission bus mandate. And there was one other item I wanted to point out, which is that there is a recommendation, or as part of the proposed executive budget, of allowing physician's assistants to be the healthcare lead for schools, and not just have a registered nurse as a requirement. And that has actually been part of the proposed executive budget for the past few years, but has not made any ground. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see that, knowing that we've had a hard time filling our roles here. It could be a good opportunity to expand the network of available medical personnel who could actually fill that role. And I think that was basically it that I wanted to highlight. Any questions on that? All right, so now jumping back to the Facilities Committee. Facilities Committee met on February 3rd, so somebody want to report out?
I can start. We let off with the topic of the drop-off loop that was hot on everybody's mind because of coming out of the village meeting, things like that is a top of discussion. That is being considered. That's one thing we have talked about for years. I mean, it's been at this board table for decades. to talk about the front issues there. We basically are not in a rush right this second. It would probably be an ad addendum. We wouldn't have to start physically designing that until December of next year. So we're gonna get some preliminary numbers together for what that would look like, and then include it as a potential ad alternative to the actual capital, or excuse me, to the actual vote in next October. And if that all gets approved, then they can start designing as quick as that. So it is on the table. It's something that has been looked at a lot. There is a lot of infrastructure in the front of that school, whether we realize it or not. There's electric service, I believe, septic, water, all those things are in that front lot. So at the tune of, we're talking on a scale of 1.2 million potentially to do any of that work out front. So it's not like it's a small cost. So we just hope that we're working together to make a collaborative solution, and this is needed to justify spending those kind of dollars. From there, we went on to our discussion of our actual capital projects. Relocation of the bus garage was talked about. The grants out there. We've been working diligently, Meg, myself, and others, Brett and all, working with CWC to see what would potentially be grant eligible to offset our local cost share. We had a target of grants we wanted to receive in order to make it a non-tax burden to our taxing our local constituents, and I think we're getting very, very close to that. By utilizing the flood buyout program through the city to actually buy out that parcel and demo the building, you'd receive aidable dollars there as our local cost match. The flood mitigation relocation and design of the new structure, all this adds up to a ballpark of around 1.5 to 2 million of local cost share that can be potentially granted by local agencies to offset our tax burden. That's huge to the district because for every dollar we get, our state aid ratio is 86%. So we have to pick up 14%. If you start doing the numbers on that, a big project, $23 million worth of project, all of a sudden we get around $3 million. Plus we have a capital reserve account of 1.75 in that ballpark. Add all that up, we can do the project. Theoretically, we're working towards a project that is no gain in taxes to our local taxing base. So that's what our goal was when we set out, is how do we get enough grant funding to offset our locals. You've seen what the budget looks like now with those cuts. We don't want to add a penny on top of that for what we have to do. So we've been working very diligently, and I think we're gaining ground fast. Yeah, so it was very, very good in these discussions we've had. We pretty much are going to work with CWC next month to present the design budget for the bus garage relocation. That is eligible theoretically 10% of the total cost of that construction. That construction slated at about 14 million. Our application went in at 962,000. Right now, Arcadis and them are tweaking that number to pull out the actual stormwater design pieces, because overall, if we lower that by pulling out the design pieces for just the stormwater, we can actually apply to a separate set of funding for the stormwater and break it out separately. So if we are asking for 962, we pull out 100,000 in design theoretically, there's another avenue, another funding source that can replace that and then some. So we're doing all those balances internally, and it's a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of rules to all these, but that's what we committed to do, was to put something forth that was a no tax gain. So we have to do this work behind the scenes and make it work. Well, I wouldn't say behind the scenes, but it feels like when we're getting calls nights, weekends, and everything to make it all go. But we dedicated to do that, and that's what we want to do. We want to be able to present something that is no gain in taxes to relocate the bus garage that we feel is something that we're mandated to do because of the flood laws, and we can't get our way out of it. So we just don't think it should be the burden of our taxpayers. So a lot of discussion around that. And then capital outlay project, we discussed that briefly. There's a resolution here later to approve the design and expenses for those capital outlay projects, but those continue to march forward. I want to remind everybody that capital vote, potentially, if that does happen and we get everything lined up for next October, has a lot more into it than just a bus garage. There is a lot of things that have to be done. Our capital outlay project right now, I think Brett's looking at replacing the bluestone and rehabbing the front entrance of Townsend School with that. those projects have to be under $100,000, and if you've been over there, the bluestone is highly deteriorated, becoming a tripping hazard and then some. So we're gonna try to tackle that with that. The other capital project, both your elevators have to be serviced. The entire parking lot of Townsend has to be redone. If we do the bus loop, or excuse me, the drop off in the front, all that construction would have to take place, so massive project. But Townsend School parking lot has no stormwater controls on it, so all that means to us is that's another funding availability potential to be able to reach out to CWC, put in stormwater controls, and garner that local match. So we're trying everything we can to make this thing work. And I think that right now we're getting to a point where it's starting to line up, and I'm starting to smile a little bit with everybody's work. We're getting close.
Can I ask, so I understand the objective is tax neutral, so that drop off, how does that impact that objective?
Yeah, so we didn't have that in the original projects. You know, when we did the 5-year building survey of everything you have in the district and rank it, that wasn't ranked, right? But things change. These things do happen. Boiler systems are giving us issues right now. Things do change. So we have to be as nimble as we can. One of the things that we looked at was how much stormwater controls would come with that if we did that, and if it's at 1.2, our target would be 14% of that to be able to come up with those dollars to offset it. Is the Townsend parking lot in the back dollars eligible enough, big enough to be able to fold that into it with that as well? Those numbers haven't been done yet, but that's our next steps. Yep.
Is that gonna be evaluated by the next meeting or within the next couple of meetings that you'll have an idea if it's gonna be added to the October vote?
We're gonna, what our thought process was is to get the numbers out of Arcadis as to what that would actually design cost be, get a ballpark number on that, start running it through what is stormwater eligible. We're gonna have to come to a meeting with CWC, bring them here and say, go through every single line and say what's eligible, not eligible type scenario, hypothetical, and then figure out you have to budget here, and then we don't get paid until as-bills. So it's on the unit you actually build. So if we over budget and under build, you're gonna have a problem, right? So we have to make sure that we are lining up as best as possible with the best numbers we can. But I think that would be an add alternative on the overall capital, because if the bids came back and the capital project we laid out was 23 million, it came back at 27, we're not gonna have the wiggle room to do something. Something's gonna have to come off this. So if you add it as an alternative, it's easier to say, it got approved, we had the funding for it, we can add it, or we can't do it because we don't have the funds to. So that was our thought process, but I think it would take some deliberation around the board to say, is that the right way to do it? Is that how we wanna handle it? It's identified, and go from there. But, yeah, all I can say is all hands on deck. Everybody's been working diligently on this to try to get it through. And I know we had meetings with CWC, again, their executive director and their flood hazard mitigation people over there. We've reached out to DEP, we've had discussions with them to start that process of, you know, would the village be interested in taking the parcel? We've discussed that briefly with the village, to get a letter of support. Doesn't lock anybody into anything until we, you know, if it goes through the flood buyout, you can either have the village own the parcel, or the town own the parcel, or the city own the parcel, I believe. There's like 3 tracks you can go to. So we reached out to the village first and said, you know, if that is a parking lot or a green space, would they be interested? There's no plan set yet as far as what the reuse would be, but that's what they would, there can't be a building there, obviously, at the end of it, still in the flood hazard way. So we reached out for a letter of support. I believe that's on the docket. Hopefully talk about Thursday. The town also has a letter of support there for that. So DEP knows that the town and village are interested in going forward with it, and just checking each box as we can.
That's great.
Yeah. Anything, Meg? Did I leave anything out?
Any other questions or?
We did end up discussing some of the damaged tiles at Townsend too briefly, so we are in the process of looking to get those redone and work with that, because they were not installed correctly. So our hope is to have them come in and be able to redo all of that.
And I didn't mention, we did get I kept saying 23 million, I think we're at 21-ish. We did change the philosophy on the Townsend roof that went to a membrane over instead of a complete tear off. If we did, again, these mandates are driving us. If we did a complete tear off, we would have to come up to building code with it. The new building code with the snow load has increased per square foot 23 pounds. It makes us ineligible to put solar on anything to meet the new building code, as well as we would literally have to rip the whole roof off of Townsend and put an extra scissor truss every other truss to span that new load. So that switched the whole philosophy. That's getting a membrane over, so we're not tearing anything up. Still has the same warranty, still has all those things. The Townsend roof was scanned, it's dry, it's actually in good shape, it's just coming out of warranty and needs treatment. That reduction was quite a bit in the overall cost.
It's like a 20-year warranty, right?
I think it was more than that.
20 or 25.
It was 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was still a decent span of time
It's
to
a lot better than
do
what
it
we were looking at for the,
for replacing trusses and all that.
So back like to the bus garage, for example, we know the roof is
done.
leaking bad, it's in horrible shape. If we had to actually replace that roof right now, we would have to bring it to the current standards that was just passed January 1st for building codes, and it would be a huge ticket.
So solar's in then?
Can't put ballast systems on it because of the increased snow load, which I have issues with it because we couldn't put that much load per square foot up there without water. You'd have to have a column of water that high to come up with that kind of force. Our parapets are only this high. It's not even theoretically possible to meet that. It just doesn't make sense. And it's in the building code now, and even the engineers are shaking their heads on it.
Anything else?
Yeah, just note the dates.
Yep.
Those are important.
So upcoming facilities committee meetings, Thursday, March 5th, Tuesday, March 24th. It will be canceled if not needed. Monday, April 13th, Tuesday, April 28th will be canceled if not needed. Tuesday, May 26th, and Tuesday, June 23rd. Those are the currently scheduled facilities committee meetings for the rest of 25-26 school year. Our shared services committee will meet this Thursday, February 12th at 3:30 p.m. The policy committee will meet on Monday, February 23rd at 6:15 p.m.
Kevin, would you mind sitting in for me Thursday? I won't be back in town yet. By
Yeah,
3:30.
yep.
Thank
Plan
you.
this in for that. And now we'll move on to the mascot discussion with Ms. Glavin and Mr. Reinhardt.
Okay, so as I brought up before in my remarks, the intent was with the WD Athletics is to look for a common student-generated mascot. So I know that Mr. Reinhardt is here this evening. I did print out potentially an email that we would send out. I don't know if you want to step forward and talk through some of it, or if you want me to outline what we talked about.
Sorry.
You can join in, and if I don't get something right, you can let me know. But after Mr. Reinhardt and we met, we do really want this to be student generated for them to have input. We're looking at a mascot right now, minus a picture or a design. We are looking for all the students to have input, 6 through 12. We created even a Google. I know Mr. Reinhardt has a Google form where we are looking for students to put their name, address, their email address would be collected, their name, and then they could offer up a suggested mascot. Now, we already have some examples. I know when you and I talked, we have War Eagles, right, that are, I think sometimes the students, I mean, correct me if it was the soccer team that came up with that, War Eagles. We know there's War Dogs, then when we've done collaborations with Delhi. But we want to look at something that's going to be forever for us to identify. We do have WD, but it's not something that we talked about. We see a W go out and a D go out and a mascot uniform. We're really looking for something that students could give us some ideas on. It could be completely outside the box and brand new, or it could be a combination of the mascots that we have now, which is, I feel like, one of the ways the War Eagles came out. I think there was one that volleyball came up with. Oh, Crush, right? Basketball, that's what it was. They came up with Crush, and I'll be the first person to say, well, I don't see how that works, because I know of Orange Crush, but this is how out of the loop I am with soft drinks. There's Grape Crush as well. So I was like, I'll drink a lot of soda, because I was like, I want to make sure this works for both, purple, orange. But apparently, that was ingenious of them, they came up with Crush. Now we looked at, potentially if you come up with a mascot, what is it gonna look like if we actually create and design an outfit that somebody would wear and go? Or do we maintain, the Warriors and the Eagles and still have something combined? So the process was to make sure that we had input from our 6th through 12th grade students, look at them as, we originally talked about maybe grade levels being asked at grade level meetings, but we thought, this way we can send it out. If we did an email to everybody that was involved, connected with the link to go to the Google form where any student could then offer up a suggestion, and nobody would feel pressured, or there would be, and every student could come up with an idea on their own. So I don't know if you want me to read your drafted email. It was lovely, but dear students, with the merger of the Walton and Downsville athletic programs, we have begun a new chapter together. While our history and traditions run deep in both communities, this merger offers us a unique opportunity to build a unified brand that represents our collective strength, spirit, and future. As student athletes, you are a part of this program. You'll be the ones wearing the jerseys and competing under our new name, which is why your voice and the most important, which is why your voice is the most important in this process. We want a mascot that inspires pride on the field, in the court, and in the stands. Thus, we are conducting a survey to gather your suggestions for names that reflect our combined community spirit and help define the legacy of generations of athletes to come. Please take a few days to think about what mascot you would like to suggest. On Tuesday, February 24th, a link will be sent to your email for you to enter a suggestion. On February 26th, the survey will close. From there, a panel of students with both schools will review the list and bring forth 3 finalists for all students to vote on in March. And then we suggested that they limit them to 20 letters, whatever they did. So this is what we were bringing to you to determine if we were going to make sure that you were okay with sending this out, to make sure that we had student input on that mascot. Thoughts, questions for either Rob or myself?
I think it's a good idea that the students do it.
We really want to have student input.
What's the schedule for the role? This is for next year, not for the spring. Is it?
The mascot change will be for next school
For
year.
next school year, yeah.
And we'll go February 24th now, that's not written in stone, but it needs to be sooner more than later. Just thinking, we notify students prior to break, which would be this week, that it's coming, then you got some time over break to, text your friends and, find out what's going on. And then come back and generally, it could be pushed off till, first week of March or so, but, definitely sooner more than later.
Is this just the mascot itself, or is this a full rebranding initiative that would mean potentially new uniforms with a new emblem on it?
So I would say that, ultimately it will be an eventual rebranding of everything. I wouldn't replace any uniforms that currently say WB on them. Those are going to be fine. As things get replaced, whether they set down to or whether it's involved, they would say WB, and then obviously if there's some sort of logo, would go as well. Most uniforms don't have the logo attached. It's they might say Eagles, they might say Warriors, or they'll say the school name, but usually you don't see the actual what the mascot is. You usually don't see it if it's not.
And what about, because I think in terms of the sports merger, schools or the sports that were traditionally always Walton sports or that Downsville did not have, we maintain that. The Walton Warriors. So like for football, would football remain as Walton Warriors, or is this a proposal to change for all sports?
So if I may just speak to the history of that. When we first tried to just get the concept of merging together, we didn't want Warrior or Eagles to be what would make or break the deal. So that's why we're like, okay, if we both have the program, then it'll be WD, and if we don't have the program, that it would remain Warriors or Eagles. My sense, I can't say for certain, my sense is that we're beyond that. I know that when this first came to the Downsville board from the Downsville Booster Club, suggesting that, time to look at this. And so myself, Teresa, Adam, Artie, Lynn, and Bert, we all jumped on a Zoom back in October, and my takeaway from that was, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody else. My takeaway from it was like, yeah, we're ready for all sports. I don't want to speak for anybody on that, but that was just the sense. So that's kind of what, like, okay, if we're ready, let's move in that direction. I can only speak to Positive Hancock, and I don't know what all sports were in existence prior to the merger. The only thing that they have remained solo on is bowling, and I think that has more to do with the number of, I believe it has more to do with the number of kids and the popularity of the sport than anything else. So that's the only other school I can reference that has gone through that knowledge of that they just kind of took on the new name for everything.
Which sports besides football are not integrated under WD?
So football, field hockey, and volleyball were, Downsville did not have the sports. We had soccer. Going into the winter, both schools had basketball. We did not have wrestling. Walton and Delhi became, so now it's like WDA wrestling, and now I don't even know what it is, the Downsville, WDAD, I don't know. And then spring baseball, softball, track, those were all sports that existed, so those are WD. We brought tennis back, that will be WD as well. This is a new initiative. Cheer, we had cheer, Walton did not. We have identified as WD for cheer.
I was gonna say Kate's volleyball uniform is WD.
Those are the modified.
Just the modified, not the varsity and JV levels. Okay, that's right.
Those are these ones this year, and then we ordered WD. So almost some assimilation going on with it.
So if you're contacting the students about this information already, why not pose the question whether they want to combine name or they want independence on certain sports and let them decide?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my concern. I'm all on board with the students having input in the mechanism for having a mascot, but wanted to make sure that there is actually interest in all the sports to take this on, right? Because that has been a long-term identity for both of the schools, really. So that's what a lot of people really hold on to. So when you're rebranding, you want to make sure that there is a genuine interest in the community to take that on. So.
And you might get more response on the mascot questionnaire if you add that to it and say, if the students want. They want their independence with it or no?
Yep.
Doesn't matter to them.
I think we find most of the time that the students are okay with it. It's the adults and the outside of the community that have more of an issue with the identification of a mascot and holding on to the old ways as well.
It took almost 10 years for the wrestling team to find the parents to finally buy into it being one program and not merged.
Right, and remember, this is for the benefit of the kids.
Yes, that's what all the adults need to remember.
To give kids the opportunity to be in a sport that they would not have if they stayed out of school.
Right, it's a benefit for all of them all around, because there's different things that they can't do, and if we spread this to clubs and different things, it opens up more avenues for the students.
This merger also helps us become more competitive. I mean, you look around, almost every school district is combined with somebody else for different sports. There are very few school districts now that aren't combined for sports. I think Sydney's the only one in the area that has its own wrestling team. So they're all starting to piggyback on each other because the population isn't there, the kids aren't there, and they're not coming out for sports, so.
So I guess what I'm hearing through this discussion is maybe there's a concern to offer the opportunity to say that if it's a sport that's only offered by your district, that you want them to be able to say, can we keep that? I guess I want to clarify what you guys were asking about that part.
But we're still offering it to the other kids though, too, so.
Right, that's
No,
why I just want to make sure.
You want to brand that identity, and you want them going on the field as a unit with that identity. So,
So making it clear that for the WD sports, we're looking for a mascot, minus those other ones.
I think if the merger is gonna go through and it's gonna become a permanent fixture to give opportunities to students in both districts, it has to be cohesive. And it needs to be presented as such. Change is hard. We've been Orange Crush, we've been the Walton Warriors football since probably before Adam was born, and I can remember that. But anyway, but the future is in front of us. If this is the avenue we're gonna take, then I think that we collectively need to embrace this and take that step. It's hard. It's going to be hard. There is going to be a lot of pushback from the community. I understand that. But if we want our children to blend with other children and interact, we have to make everybody feel welcome. Not somebody else wearing a different shirt because it's a different sport.
Thoughts?
Don't ask me about the football change. That's a hard one for me. But I do think that through time you do, like that modified sport, you do assimilate through time, but that one's a tough one. You gotta remember, you are supported by a community and their input. The student input's great on a lot of that stuff and drives the changes for the future, but you still have community input you need to have on certain things, and it's a challenge. I know if it doesn't sit right with me, I can't imagine our cohorts, looking at something like football, because they're gonna ask, well, how many kids are doing this? How many kids are doing that? If they're all Walton, why aren't we Walton Warriors? That's the first question you're gonna get. But through time, I'm sure Deposit Hancock, had the same struggles.
Yeah.
For a long period of time, and
that was two
maybe
schools that were deadly rivals.
Right.
Trust me, I have scars from those.
And I think what Rob, you and I talked about is that right now, starting at that booster level is kind of where it's growing up, looking for something for those students to feel unified outside of even school. So I think that push is already starting.
Yeah, well, it's not directly related, but kind of associated with it is, Adam, how many kids have we had down Downville play football? 3?
Varsity level, we had 1 last year and partial this year.
So,
Modified last year, we had 3.
So, I get that part. There are things that we can contribute to the football program that might not necessarily be athletes. And where I'm going with this is, we are acquiring portable field lights for next year. Significant investment that we're doing. They are going to be primarily located on our soccer field, but they're portable and and it's intended to be that way. These lights are going to have branded WD, they're not going to say Downsville on them, and we would like to bring them over to Walton and set up if we want to do a Friday night lights or if we want to do a track meet. So again, we might not be putting the kids on the field, but we definitely will be supporting football and the other program in other ways besides just throwing monsters. So we're committed to this as well.
Again, if you start a new generation like you were with modified teams and they grow up through with that philosophy, by the time they get into the varsity level, they're just different, right? They're already assimilated, they're already stuff like that. It's just, we can all kid ourselves and say it's not going to be a big discussion. It's going to be a big discussion just with that topic. The rest of them seem to be molding that way. I would expect we're going to head that way in time, but just be mindful, that's all.
This is just to get ideas though from the kids, right? Like nothing's gonna come.
No.
It's just a
we're getting ideas, there is a timeline, we're gonna say we want this back by this time. Then we'll have a team between the two schools come together and look at all the input. And I think the thought was to narrow it down to like around 3, to then put back out to the students. But nothing would change until next, I mean, that would be the thought process, and then, would be an opportunity for them to weigh in and see what we get back. Okay. All right, well, I appreciate you working through that with me, Mr. Earnhardt.
What are we doing?
As far as I'm concerned, we're okay with sending the email out and then giving that timeline just to get ideas for this point, and then we'll bring all that stuff back together, and that'll determine how we move forward with the ideas. So thank you.
Okay, so we're down to DCMO BOCES capital project results.
Yes, so first, well, good or bad, I don't know, but we had a really great turnout here, highly unanticipated, I guess, but that was really great. And but yes, the BOCES capital project did pass. So it is the updates. It'll be at the Herald campus, which most of our students actually attend, but it'll also be the Pole campus. That's in Norwich, and we do have students that attend programming there. And the Masonville school was bought. So all of the 3 pieces of that were passed. I think it's 4.4. It's or 44 million. I can look, but we did include that. It is in the board packet for you to look that through, but it did pass. But I also want to do a shout out to thank Corey. So she worked really hard to make sure that that was all up and running, back and forth in the bus garage. Thank you.
Ex officio student board member update.
So March 10th, I'm going to meet with other student board members from around March 20th. Okay. I met with a lot of these board members at the beginning of the year, and really good experience, so I'm looking forward to it. Travel club leaves for Costa Rica in 10 days. Wait, that's a month. This Saturday at 11:30 a.m. and we come back at February 22nd. There's snorkeling, kayaking, whitewater rafting, zip lining, and touring national parks. So I'm really excited for it. Yep.
As a representative of the school board.
Yeah.
Come back
No
and-
pressure, Con.
Well, you're having fun.
Make sure to make it back to the US.
Yeah.
Alright, thank you for the update. Any other discussion items tonight? Alright, move on to.
The only thing is today I got to, Kevin sent me a text real quick on the foundation aid and things like that. So I did get to meet with 5 of our state reps and got the point across. I got about 1 minute with each one because we were up there for other business, but I did promise you guys that while I had their ear, we would talk real quick about it. So I did bring my Walton Central School briefcase and I laid it in front of them to make sure they knew we were there for multiple reasons. And they all seemed very aware. I got to meet, I was trying to say, 2 of the assembly people we got to meet with were on the education committee, so that was nice. And they were up to speed with that stuff. And with Kevin's input real quick today, I got to at least say the foundation aid calcs and stuff were way out of whack, to which they agreed. So they're well aware and they did like that. There were a ton of students in Albany today. So I think they had student aid, foundation aid was like big, and there were big lobby groups there. I mean, if there weren't 4,000 or 5,000 students there today, that would be a low number. It was amazing to see how much lobbying goes on a regular basis up there. So very, very good.
Hoping they listen.
It was nice. I think it was well received, and they were all shaking their head like, yep, we understand, and we know that rural schools are struggling. So they're aware.
Well, thanks for carrying that
Yeah.
message. I really
I'm glad you could text me back. So I'm like, what do you want me to say here, Kevin?
Thanks. Okay, 6A, correspondence.
We do not have any.
7A, any additions to the agenda? Moving on to our consent agenda. So we have, our consent agenda, personnel resignation, retirement, personnel unpaid leave of absence, and athletic recommendations, which is an emergency recommendation. Would anybody like to pull any of those for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Tammy, second by Jake. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is carried. New business. 9A, accepting donations. The Board of Education accepts the following donations with sincere appreciation. $100 from Timothy and Jennifer Kilpatrick to the Jeremy G. Fletcher Sportsmanship Award in memory of John McNeil. $50 from Alan and Catherine Reynolds to the Jeremy G. Fletcher Sportsmanship Award in memory of John McNeil. $50 from Harold and Judy Neal to the Jeremy G. Fletcher Sportsmanship Award. $100 from Nancy McNeil to the Jeremy G. Fletcher Sportsmanship Award. $100 from Michael and Gail Johnston. I'm just going to read the names on these. These are all donations to the Jeremy G. Fletcher Sportsmanship Award in memory of John McNeil. Michael and Gail Johnston. $100 from Wendy Clem. $200 from Gordon and Karen Fletcher. $250 from Forno Enterprises to the Michael Spaccaforno Memorial Scholarship. $250 from Forno Enterprises to the Brandon Shelton Memorial Scholarship. And 24 alternate baseball jerseys from the Walton Little League to the Walton Varsity Baseball Team. So we appreciate those donations. We entertain a motion to accept those.
I'll make a motion to accept them.
Second.
Motion by Tammy, second by Jake. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. 9B is the approval of the football merger. So the Walton Central School District football program will be merged with Downsville Central School District in the sport of varsity football, modified football for the 26-27 sports season. And this comes forward earlier than the other mergers, I think, due to a timing scheduling issue for now. So I'd entertain a motion on this.
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Jake, second by Tammy. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 9B, the approval of the football program merger is carried. 9C, proposed action for the Board of Education to authorize the superintendent to enter an agreement with Arcadis for an architectural and engineering services proposal for the 26-27 capital outlay project. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Motion by Tammy, second by Jake. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 9C is carried. 10A, policy review. Bailey, do you want to run through those?
Yes. Annual district election and budget vote, news media relations, public participation at board meetings, school board elections, candidates and campaigning, voting procedures, board member qualifications, and filling board vacancies.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, these are part of our annual policy review plan, so please review those at your convenience and propose them for discussion at future agenda, or if anybody has any discussion tonight you'd like to bring forward, you're welcome to. If not, we'll move on to item 11A, which is our supervisor's remarks. Ms. Glavin, do you want
Yes, well, we have Rick Robinson and we also have John Nolan, transportation. Rick, do you want to highlight anything or do you want me to pull something out of your report?
Not really. We got a lot done over the last break. We ran a couple new fiber lines, which were really helpful. There was some damage that was done to some lines over the last couple months in the high school B wing, and it degraded the service by about 30%. So we had a company come in, run the lines, we did all the rest of the connections and programming, and it's up and running, and it actually increased the speed by about 10% on top of that 30%. We also replaced one of the network closets down in the C wing. And oddly enough, that increased our speeds by up to 30%, which actually doesn't normally happen. So I'm a little confused on that. We're just going to chalk it up as a win. So we're making some good backbone changes, and we'll continue with the next February grade. I plan on doing 2 more classes during that break.
I was happy to hear the increase in percents of students, so I think everybody else who's in those areas was happy about that too, so thank you. And then from transportation, one highlight that John talked to me, he's doing obviously still a lot of Department of Transportation inspections and so forth, but he did have the gentleman that he was working with pass the road test and is now a substitute driver. So that is a big win for us. Again, if there's anybody who knows anybody who's got the qualifications and is interested in being a substitute driver for busing, we would absolutely have you apply. So that is a big highlight. And then with that, we have the next, we have administrator remarks. So
Go ahead, shift over.
anyone would like to go first? Adam first, all right.
The second semester we started in the middle school, just like the high school. It's not a lot of major changes for our students, but there are some 20-week and 10-week courses that they start based on that. This Friday is our second quarter wellness day. So we'll recognize our students' academic achievements in assembly. We also have, we're doing a grade level kind of family feud style game show, and then we have a group coming in that does, it's an SEL concept, but they do the human board game. So they're going to be working with kids. And then our kids who made honor roll principals list or superintendent's list Sundays, also that kind of thing. I threw a picture on there, Ms. Nickerson using Bob the mobile desk out in the hallways. She was doing minute meetings. It's a good chance for her as a new face in the middle school to meet our students, but it's also part of the counseling standards for every year that every student has contact with their counselor in some way. So we get it a lot of other ways with our students, but this ensures some of those kids who normally would talk to the counselor get a chance to meet the counselor and do those types of things. And I had some other pictures on there.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. So at Townsend, we had our second annual Sweetheart Dance. It was very well attended. We had over 200 people there in our auditorium, gym, and we kind of had like a little maker space for some of the kids that didn't want to dance. It's well attended, very energized area, but it went very well. So we're happy and thankful for the PTO for supporting that. Also this quarter, we recognized our first grade students for good attendance. They had 94% in attendance, which is really good considering the sickness that has been going around, the weather-related absences, so we are very proud of them. They are looking at either a dance party or some extra art special time. So congratulations to them. And lastly, I just wanted to highlight, I left some data in your report for you to look at. Townsend is piloting the Rooms app, which is a communication app for parents and teachers. We are getting remarkable stats to show the usage of that. Parents is using it, teachers are using it. So I wanted to share that with you, and we just received the next 3 months, so I will send that to you guys in your next report. So very positive experience on both sides.
Thank you so much.
I want to just highlight and build off of the Orange Crush celebration. Our algebra region scores were a significant improvement, but I also included data for the entire January region session. And as a school, we continue to improve. A huge shout out to my high school teachers, all the staff in the high school, secretary and support staff. It really honestly takes a team effort. Students obviously play a huge part in that. But our proficiency rate for the January regions alone is 80%. That's an increase of 2% from last year. Just a remarkable session for our high school. Very proud of our staff and our students. I also want to celebrate Trip Taylor, a current 11th grade student, who recently went above and beyond demonstrating an act of kindness toward another student in need. With this act, Trip represents some of the best of what Walton has to offer. People looking out for one another, acting with integrity, doing the right thing when it matters most. Trip just is a phenomenal kid, and I'm happy to recognize him here.
Thank you. Rob, why not?
Sure. Athletics, winter, we're in the final stretches of the winter season. Both our basketball teams have
at least 500 or better records and are going on postseason. Lots of milestone accomplishments for individuals this year. Been following the WD Facebook page. We had a couple thousand-point scorers. We got some school records being set in indoor track. We have wrestlers that have reached 100-win milestone. So lots of good things to celebrate there. Spring signups have pretty much are complete. We're 130 some students signed up. Does that sound about right? The other day. Just under 140. Tennis numbers are extremely strong for just bringing the program back, and we're also going to be able to do both JV, varsity, JV, and modified baseball this year. So that's a win for the merge because we got enough to field repeats and put kids all at the appropriate levels. From the administrative end of things, Teresa and I have been meeting with the unit leaderships of the DP and WTA to try and get some standardization of the language in the contracts and whatnot that they apply to coaches. There are some discrepancies, and I think it's just a benefit of the program to get these things hammered out. So it's a process that we just started, but
All right, thank you very much. Move right on to mine?
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna speed read. No, I just wanted to start out by following up with the public comments from last meeting as I was not here. And I just want to point that I appreciate hearing the concerns to reflect and offer us opportunities to grow. And I've always believed in that we don't get any better if we don't know the things that other people are perceiving to have issue with us. So I'm always open and willing to listen. So the first thing was, after speaking with both school supervisors and the parent that had shared with the busing issue, it was resolved that the district will in the future send out a school messenger to all indicating that there is an issue with our buses, and then indicate the specific bus numbers that are having the issue, whether they're going to be delayed or not. And this way it just covers everybody versus trying to call individually. So definitely a learning experience, something that I think that we are going to do better this next time around if there's any issues. In the matter of the photos on our website where names are posted, it shed an opportunity for us to reflect on how practices in our ever-changing world are happening. And really, it's considering as a district, we want to look at how we are celebrating our students, but also keeping their safety in mind. So this is an issue that's come up with across the board with lots of different schools, and different schools are approaching it different ways. But my take on it is I think it's important to hear that from each other and I would like to create a stakeholder group that involves board members, staff members, parents, students, guardians, to really share perspective on this. Now we do have a strategic planning team through links, but I think it's important to get some feedback about how we want to move forward with this. So we're listening to input. And this is a means for us on how we're going to determine social media, how we're going to put our students to celebrate, but also be safe. I'm looking to set that up closer to spring because if we're going to change anything in our code of conduct or student handbooks, we'd want to do that. And I think we can do better on the idea of FERPA. So in taking a look at this as a learning experience, we do have that information out. It is actually under the annual notifications that's on our board, or on our website. It's underneath community, but I don't know if you are going to see it unless you're looking for it. So I think in this experience, we can do better on making sure people are aware of what they are potentially consenting to. The information is out there, as we are required to do for an annual notification, but I think some people are under some misunderstandings when they look at their final forms, or they're not clear on that when you approve the FERPA component, there are a listing of the directory information, like your name, your phone numbers, and you have an opportunity to select all or none of those things if you would consent by filling out that final forms. If you choose to opt out of any of those, which is really kind of what you have here at Walton, it's implied consent when you sign off on the final forms. But if you'd like to be able to do something, any or all of those, and opt out, you just have to write a letter to me. Now there is a date if you read through it. It's supposed to be 2 weeks after you receive it, but I'll be honest, I am completely aware that in some instances between parents and students, things change. throughout the year that could impact whether you want your student to be out there on our website or not, or their name and things like that. So we can be flexible, I believe, on those components. Now, with that being said, I think that we can do better as far as making sure parents are aware of what they're looking at. Maybe do a better understanding of how it's indicated in the actual website as a link. But definitely want to get some people and their perspectives together to see how we can do that and place it in our student handbook. Because that's where most people are going to look for it, and I know in other districts I've been in, that component was briefly indicated in the parent handbook, student handbook, guardian handbook. So that's my intent on that learning experience, because I think not just I want to do better, we will do better. And then the parking issues, I know we heard during public comments on that, but just want to let you know, that is so upfront, as Graydon even mentioned with facilities. It was determined at our safety meeting when we actually invited the mayor to come to share his proposals, that even though there was a facilities meeting that night, that I would be able to go down and speak on behalf of us, that we are working with the village at the beginning of that village meeting to scoot up here to be at the facilities meeting. So I did go to that village thing. I wanted to make sure that, just like I appreciate on behalf of the village, you coming here to say, we're going to be here to help collaborate and work together. I'm excited that I wouldn't say happy, but I'm excited that it was tabled, because I think that's now gives us an opportunity to look at all that input and really develop something together. The fire lane is essential. We're already looking at potential drop-off loops that were there before me, but I think working together we can determine how to make this a safety issue, a priority for our students. I've seen some issues down there, so I appreciate that, and I think that the whole goal with the village, whatever input we get, to come back to our facilities and our safety committee meeting and work together collaboratively. So I'm looking forward to being able to have that opportunity. A reminder that we did reschedule the January 26th Superintendent's Conference. That was set aside already in advance, but it became an emergency day for us, for our staff, so we are looking to redo that. It will be March 13th. And I'm sharing a concern from Delaware Valley Hospital, and I'm going to read it right off because I did get some information from them. I know I've mentioned it before, with construction happening, it's really not a good idea for our students to walk through the UHS parking area. It's going to get worse with construction and so forth. So part of this is, as you may know, the DVH Medical Neighborhood Construction Project is now underway. This work brings significant increases in vehicle movement, heavy equipment, and other potentially hazardous activity throughout the hospital parking area. Historically, many students have used the hospital lot as a shortcut when walking to and from the school. Unfortunately, due to current and upcoming construction activity, all through traffic and pedestrian access through the parking lot is no longer permitted to ensure the safety of students, staff, patients, and construction crews. Although we have shared this information in newspapers, on the radio, social media, we are still seeing a large number of students walking through the parking lot. We're hoping the message would be effective coming directly from the school. So again, I'm reading it here at a board meeting. I'm hoping people are listening. We've shared that it's on announcements for our students to be aware. Again, student safety. I know it's potentially easy to cut through there, but it is not in anybody's best interest. So I am sharing this out. It was even explained to me they're cutting through fences and getting underneath. It's like, we just don't want to set ourselves up to get hurt. So.
Is it warranted to do a global connect with that information?
A what?
A
call.
global call.
I thought about it. That's why I was kind of looking for some guidance, because we could put it on our social media too. It is really not our thing, but we could do that. We're trying to reach the students. We could put it on our Facebook. Hey, we're in support of. So I really wanted to get some guidance on where else we might be able to do that. We certainly could do an all-call school messenger.
I think it needs to be blasted, and I think we really need to encourage students not only to avoid the DVH parking areas and property, but also to use Stockton Avenue versus Maple Street to walk. And I think that needs to be broadcast not only from us collectively as a school community, but any encouragement we can get from outside the town, the village, whoever, because between the town to school issue that everybody in the community is aware of, but come up Maple Street at night when a kid's getting done practice at this time of year at 5 o'clock at night, and they're wearing their dark clothes. Snowbanks, and it's narrow. Somehow collectively as a community we need to get it out there that please use Stockton Avenue. I walk, I run. It's not any longer to come this way and up the steps than it is to go up and around Maple Street. It's just, they're kids. They're going to take a shortcut.
Well, that is something I feel like is, as if we're looking at safety across these drop-offs and arrivals, we want to make sure that we're also getting that message out. So just wanted some feedback on how comfortable you are putting that out. So I feel like I'm getting that feedback. And the last thing, just really as a positive, we did announce our valedictorian and salutatorians. I know it was broadcast on our announcements here at school. There is a time I've been told that they do come in and we do recognize them, but I just think it was really important because at this time of the year, this is a huge celebration as we're getting a little frantic towards spring. But congratulations to Eli Williams as our valedictorian and Karen Vesterfeld for our salutatorian. Any questions or thoughts? Yeah, so kudos to them. Any thoughts, questions, concerns? I got my feedback on the message. So. All right.
Great. At this, we do have the need for executive session tonight for discussing matters related to the future employment of particular people and student matters. I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second. Amy, second by Jake. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's carried. And the board will not be taking any action after executive session other than to adjourn the meeting. So I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion.